morning to you. It's about half a minute to go, and it'll be 2 o'clock in San Francisco in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning in New York, 10 o'clock in the morning in London, and 11 o'clock in Paris, 12 o'clock in Moscow, and in Hong Kong, Beijing and Singapore, it'll soon be 5 o'clock in the evening. Sydney time, it's now 7 p.m. local time, and a very good evening to you. This is Nick, VK7 Whiskey with the club call sign VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu on behalf of the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club. So welcome to week 5 of the slow Morse course. Now over the next 30 minutes we continue with the letters that you learned last week. Zulu, Charlie, Golf, November, Victor. Then we introduce the final group of new letters for you to learn next week. It's gone pretty quickly, hasn't it? Now don't forget, during the day, if you see a sign or a number plate with a character you recognize, you can practice by just saying it quietly to yourself or thinking it with dits and das. Now first we're going to begin with the manual Morse sheet like last week, and this will only be for a few minutes as I've prepared a separate file for those who want to continue using manual Morse sheet, using the manual Morse sheet called week 5. Then we will practice the letters Zulu, Charlie, Golf, November, Victor, using Farnsworth spacing, where the characters will be sent, in this case, at about 10 or 11 words a minute, but with large gaps between them. Then, as you progress, the gaps will become shorter. Now have a paper and pencil ready to write down what you receive, and the manual Morse sheet ready with your finger on the start position. Right, here we go. Switching to CW. This is Nick, VK7 Whiskey with the club call sign VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu on behalf of the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club with this slow Morse course. I wonder if you got that, and did you see my deliberate mistake? Right, what I sent was Tango Alpha Papa, and the next word was Oscar November, and the third word was Papa India Papa Echo Sierra, and the last word on that line was Papa Lima Sierra. So what it should read is tap on pipes, please. Papa Lima Sierra is a Morse code abbreviation for please. And then I followed it with the two words secret CW. Did I miss a letter out? You'll have to check. Secret CW. Right. Now, that leaves the manual Morse sheet for this week. I mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again. The context separator. Da, did, da. And I was listening around for CW. Whoopsie daisy, that came out on AM. Maybe you were still able to copy me okay. What I sent was tap on pipe, PLS, please. And then I sent secret CW. You see, when we do this live, I make mistakes. There's no way getting round it. And then I talked about the context separator, da, instead of using full stops and commas, but we'll come to that later. Anyway, you know, you can get a lot of practice by writing the letters you're studying on a piece of paper as dits and das, not dots and dashes, and glancing at it whenever you have a couple of minutes. I used to keep a piece of card in my top pocket and take it out and have a sneaky look at it every now and again. Now, the 5-letter character groups we're going to deal with using this week's letters: Zulu, Charlie, Golf, November, and Victor. So I'll go through Zulu, Charlie, Golf, November, and Victor, and then I'm going to give you 8 groups using those letters. Please stand by, switching to CW. Okay, Nick back with you on voice. VK7 Whiskey Whiskey with the club call sign VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu on behalf of the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club. What I sent, which started to get a little bit shorter in gaps between each letter. Okay, the following groups were sent, and I sent 8 groups. The first one, Golf, November, Golf, Charlie, Victor. That was, of course, after I'd sent the letters that we're dealing with this week. Zulu, Charlie, Golf, November, Victor. Okay. Golf, November, Golf, Charlie, Victor was the first one. The second one was Zulu, Victor, Charlie, Victor, Charlie. Followed by Golf, November, Victor, Zulu, Zulu. November, Charlie, Zulu, November, Golf. And November, Victor, Charlie, Charlie. Zulu, November, Victor, Zulu, Zulu. And the last 2 groups, Victor, Victor, Zulu, Charlie, Charlie. And Victor, November, Golf, Charlie, Zulu. Right, how did you do? Well, I can see some guys, because quite apart from streaming this live for YouTube, it's also going out streamed through our Discord channel, as well as, of course, through HS. And I can see that a couple have put up their decoding and are doing very well indeed. Right, but what we're going to do now is we're going to switch back to CW, and I'm going to send 8 more groups. But this time, it's with all the previous weeks learnt so far. So this time we're going to include Alpha X-Ray Sierra Echo Tango, Hotel Bravo Delta India Juliet, Oscar Papa Quebec Romeo Mike, and this week's letters Zulu Charlie Golf November Victor. You know, we've only got one more week of letters to do, and then we start on the numbers. Time flies when you're having fun. Right, please stand by. Switching to CW. back with you on voice again, and it's starting to shorten the gaps between those letters. All sent at the same speed, the characters were. But bear in mind, we've actually stepped up a little in comparison to last week. As I said earlier, probably sending at about 10 to 12 words a minute tonight. But of course, that drops down considerably, leaving large groups, large gaps between each of the characters. This is what I sent. Zulu, Sierra, Victor, Sierra, Echo. Quebec, Romeo, November, Tango, Uniform. Charlie, Quebec, Delta, Echo, Sierra. Hotel, India, Romeo, Sierra, Tango. X-ray, Quebec, Romeo, Golf, Alpha. Victor, Zulu, November, India, Charlie. November, Oscar, Mike, India, Zulu. And the last group I sent was Echo, Sierra, Zulu, Golf, Alpha. Now, when you look through those letters, the characters I sent in those groups, you may recognize various things. So, for example, in the second group, there's Quebec, Romeo, November, QRN. QRN, that is atmospheric noise, atmospheric interference. I'm suffering from QRN, old man, but hopefully conditions will improve. Tango Uniform, that's an abbreviation for thank you. In the next group, we had CQ, which of course is a general call, CQ, CQ, CQ. And then we had Delta Echo, of or from. And so it goes on, and I'll let you look through the other groups and see if you can recognize any of the others that are hidden in there. Right. So, next week's letters. And there's one extra letter here because we've been dealing with 5 letters each week. And, of course, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. So this coming week, as you become so much more proficient, we now have 6 letters in the group, and they are as follows. Uniform, Yankee, Lima, Kilo, Whiskey, Foxtrot. Uniform, Yankee, Lima, Kilo, Whiskey, Foxtrot. So there's one extra letter to learn. Now, I'm going to go through those just for you to get used to what they sound like. And I'll go through them first of all one at a time, and then I'll repeat each one 3 times. Here we go. VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu, switching to CW. Okay, back with you on voice. Those are next week's letters. Uniform Yankee Lima Kilo Whiskey and Foxtrot. The final letters that we need to learn for the alphabet. Now, in the time that's remaining, I'm just going to make mention of how to start and end a contact. And I'm also going to talk about prosigns. So, how do you start a QSO? Well, if you've heard somebody calling CQ, they will give their CQ 3 times, followed by their call sign 3 times, and then they will send the letter K, or they might send dida-dida, which means end of transmission. However, that's when you go back to them sending their call sign, and if conditions seem pretty good, if you're receiving them well, the chances are that they're going to receive you well as well. So send their call sign a couple of times at most, but send your call sign 3 times. And then send the letter K for over to see whether they've heard you. That's how you start a contact. Of course, if there's nobody you hear calling CQ, then you are going to have to initiate looking for a station who's going to come back to contact you. So, you would call CQ, 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 DE, of or from, and your call sign 3 times, and then send the letter K, which is the easiest way to do it, for over, and wait and see if anybody comes back to you. Now, being perfect gentlemen using Morse code, they should come back to the same speed that you are using. If not, then you need to learn to send Papa Sierra Echo or Papa Lima Sierra, because both of those mean please. Quebec Romeo Sierra, QRS, which means please slow down. On being perfect gentlemen or gentle ladies, they will slow down and match your speed. On the other hand, if you're already sending at 400 million words a minute, and you hear somebody calling at 8 words a minute, go back to them at 8 words a minute. And if you're using a keyboard, please learn how to change the speed. So, that's how you start a QSO. How do you end a QSO? Well, usually you get to the stage where you say, thanks for the QSO, 73s, thank you, Charlie Uniform Lima, see you later. And then you send the person's call sign, and then your call sign, and you might end with a couple of dits after sending your call sign. Did it. And if they're not going to come back, or if they've already finished saying what they have to say, they might just come back and say, did it. And I'll be talking about shave and a haircut next week. You might like to look that up. So, how to start and end a QSO. Of course, if you get flustered or your key falls apart, don't worry. Just go quiet. And they'll think, oh, maybe something's happened. And it probably has. Don't worry, though. We've all been there. Now, when you're in a contest and you have a minimal contest contact, all you do is exchange call signs, your readability, strength and tone, and often it's just a serial number. And in fact, in some contests, they're not really worried. You could just say 599, even if you're only receiving them at 567 or 569. And add your serial number. Now, for example, if I'm having a contact with somebody and it's my first contact, I would send 599001. But instead of sending out the character for 0, I would just send a long dash a long dash, and then the number 1. However, we're going to get to numbers, and that's going to be learning numbers after next week's lot of letters. Now, don't forget, resources online are the American Radio Relay League, the Radio Society of Great Britain, the Wireless Institute of Australia, and if you can pick up VK2 Whiskey India on 80 metres on 3.699, it's a 24-hour Morse code training beacon. And it's great for propagation as well. All sorts of different speeds of CW. And don't forget, Tuesday nights, the slow Morse nets or evenings on 40 metres run by VK2 Kilo India. And you can find his email on qrz.com. That's Mark. Don't forget the slow Morse course. Jordan has very kindly placed it on YouTube. That's VK3 Alpha Charlie Uniform. So don't forget, Tuesday nights on 40 metres. And also, next week, we're going to be talking about secret CW by hand and QRP transmissions with chirp. Yes, that'll be very interesting. Now, I have to tell you that Morse code readers, and you're quite at liberty to use Morse code readers, are not 100%, and I have to find one that really is 100%, because at the moment they're just not reliable. So it's a good idea to know Morse and use it as a training aid. That's the best thing you could do. Now, what I sent before we went into the manual Morse sheet, or when I went into the manual Morse sheet tonight, I sent tap on pipes, please. Have you ever seen a movie where somebody's stuck in prison and they start tapping on the pipes in Morse code? Yep, you guessed it. Lots of people know about that, and they used to send messages to each other using Morse code by tapping on pipes. That's water pipes, not smoking pipes. Right. We're just about to wrap up. We've got 2 minutes to go. So, I hope you went well tonight, and I hope you enjoyed it. We're certainly cracking through the course, and I'll look forward to catching up with you next week. I was going to talk about prosigns. Prosigns are where you join two letters together, and I've already made mention about the end of transmission where people send di-da-di-da-dit. That's the letter A for alpha and the letter R for Romeo conjoined. Now, it means different things to different people, but some people say, well, it's all red. Other people say, well, it's a new page. Other people say it's end of transmission, which is what I learnt it to be. Di-da-di-da-dit, A and R conjoined. And of course, there's the start of transmission. And the start of transmission is CT, Charlie Tango, conjoined. Da-di-da-di-da. Not da-di-da-di-da, but da-di-da-di-da. You'll hear that from time to time. Anyway, very good evening to you from northern Tasmania. This is Nick, VK7 Whiskey now closing the slow Morse course, and we'll be moving to 3.567 for the technical net on behalf of the Northern Tasmanian Amateur Radio Club. VK7 Tango Alpha Zulu is clear.